Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution says, Vice President and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6 states, when the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside.
Donald Trump is absolutely frozen right now as Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican by the way, was in his office drafting a letter citing Article 2, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, the clause that says the president shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. And Thune wasn't drafting this alone. He had 28 Republican senators with him. 28. That's not a typo. Nearly 30 GOP senators, Trump's own party, signing their names to a document demanding his immediate removal from office. This is happening the same day Trump rage quit that Epstein hearing. The same day 87 million people watched him scream fake news and disconnect from federal court. And while everyone was focused on that absolute meltdown, something even bigger was happening behind the scenes. And here's what makes this absolutely devastating. This isn't some symbolic gesture. This isn't a strongly worded statement that goes nowhere. This is 28 Republicans joining with all 50 Democrats to create a supermajority that exceeds the 67 votes needed for conviction in an impeachment trial. The math is simple. 50 Democrats plus 28 Republicans equals 78 senators. You need 67 to convict. They have 78. Game over. But real quick, before we get into this, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built National Brief Network to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe because you might think you are but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. Alright, let's get into what's actually happening. 3 things triggered this simultaneously. First, the Epstein testimony. Trump fleeing that courtroom screaming about hoaxes while victim testimony gets read into the official record. Second, the pardon leaks. A list of 1,247 people that Trump planned to pardon, including Proud Boys members Don Jr. and get this Epstein co-conspirators. And third, the illegal Venezuela strikes that happened without any congressional authorization whatsoever. Any one of these would be serious. All 3 happening in the same 72-hour period. That's what broke the dam. That's what made 28 Republican senators say enough. We can't defend this anymore. We can't spin this anymore. We can't pretend this is normal anymore. Now let me walk you through what Article 2, Section 4 actually means, because this is not normal impeachment. This is not the slow process we saw with Clinton or the first 2 Trump impeachments. Article 2, Section 4 is the express lane. It's the constitutional provision that says when a president commits high crimes and misdemeanors, they shall be removed. Not they might be removed. Not they could face consequences. They shall be removed. It's mandatory language. And the Senate is invoking it because they're arguing that Trump's actions meet the threshold for immediate removal without the usual lengthy trial process. And here's what makes this situation so significant. The letter specifically references Article 2, Section 4, not just impeachment proceedings, not just censure, not just investigation, immediate removal, the nuclear option, the constitutional mechanism that was designed for exactly this scenario. When a president becomes so dangerous, so corrupt, so incapable of performing their duties that waiting for an election isn't an option. That immediate action is required to protect the country. Share this video with everyone you know because, and it's working. Chief Justice John Roberts, who presides over Senate impeachment trials, has already scheduled an emergency Article 2 hearing. Not next month, not next week. Emergency session, meaning days. And while this is happening, while the Senate is organizing what might be the first successful presidential removal in American history, J.D. Vance has assumed acting powers. The vice president is now performing presidential duties because Trump, according to official statements from Vance's office, is in a state of total incapacity following his courtroom outburst. They're using the 25th Amendment procedures while simultaneously preparing for Article 2 removal. It's a 2-track process to get Trump out of office as fast as humanly possible while maintaining constitutional order. But here's the thing, this isn't Democrats doing this. This is his own party. These are senators who voted to acquit him in previous impeachment trials. Senators who defended him through Russia investigations and Mueller reports and January 6th and classified documents and everything else. These are the people who stood by him for years. and they're done. They're publicly stating that his pardon scheme, giving mass pardons to people involved in trafficking and insurrection, combined with his Epstein connections being exposed in court, combined with launching military strikes without congressional approval. That combination represents high crimes that mandate immediate removal, not impeachment hearings that take months. Immediate removal under Article 2, Section 4. Trump's response, according to audio from the court hearing, because yes, he was still on that video link when he lost it. He screamed, "Fake Epstein files, DOJ hoax, I'm banning Congress." Banning Congress. The President of the United States, currently in detention watching his own party turn against him, threatened to ban Congress. Think about what that means. That's not a power that exists. That's not something the president can do. That's dictatorship language. That's the kind of thing that makes 28 Republican senators say, yeah, we need to remove him right now today, before he tries something even crazier. This is the moment. This is the Senate revolt. This is the constitutional crisis that's been building for months, finally reaching critical mass. The three charges they're focusing on are incredibly serious. First, the mass pardon scheme. This isn't about pardoning a few political allies or some nonviolent offenders. This is a list of 1,247 people. And according to the leaks which came from inside the White House, by the way, this list includes members of the Proud Boys who were convicted for their role in January 6th. It includes Don Jr., Trump's own son, who's been under investigation for multiple financial crimes. And what happened next? This is the part that connects to the Epstein testimony. It includes people who were named as co-conspirators in Epstein-related cases. The Epstein testimony gets read in court. Virginia Giuffre describes trafficking operations at Mar-a-Lago. The deposition mentions multiple individuals who facilitated or knew about Epstein's activities. And Trump's pardon list prepared before this testimony became public includes some of those same names. Which means he was planning to pardon people connected to Epstein's operation before the world knew the full extent of what happened at his resort. That's consciousness of guilt. That's attempting to obstruct justice before charges are even filed. That's using presidential pardon power to cover up crimes that implicate him personally. And senators, even Republican senators, are looking at this and saying that's not a legitimate use of presidential power. That's criminal conspiracy. Make sure you're subscribed to National Brief Network because second, the Epstein testimony itself and Trump's reaction to it. This isn't just about what happened 20 years ago at Mar-a-Lago. This is about Trump's behavior in court. He's the sitting president of the United States. He's appearing via video link in a federal hearing. And when sworn testimony from a trafficking victim gets read into the record testimony that directly implicates his property and suggests his knowledge of criminal activity, his response is to scream about hoaxes, call it a deep state pedo conspiracy, and then disconnect from the hearing. That behavior alone is what triggered Vance to invoke the 25th Amendment procedures. The vice president issued a statement saying Trump demonstrated total incapacity to perform his duties. He couldn't sit through a court hearing. He couldn't control his emotions. He made wild accusations against federal judges and law enforcement. He threatened to ban Congress. These are not the actions of someone who is mentally fit to command the nuclear arsenal or make decisions about war and peace. And Republicans who have defended Trump through everything are finally admitting it. They're saying, we watched the same video everyone else watched. We saw him lose control. We can't pretend this is normal anymore. Third, the Venezuela strikes. Trump authorized military action against Venezuelan targets without congressional approval. Now presidents have some latitude to respond to imminent threats without getting congressional sign-off first. But this wasn't an imminent threat response. This was a planned military operation. There was no American personnel in danger. There was no attack on U.S. interests. This was Trump deciding on his own to launch strikes because he was mad about something. And the Constitution is crystal clear. Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the power to declare war, not the president. Congress. So when Trump launched those strikes without authorization, without even notifying congressional leadership, he violated the Constitution. And that violation is explicitly listed in the Senate letter as one of the high crimes justifying removal. Now here's where it gets even more complicated. The leaked documents about the pardon scheme mention something called the WLFI slush fund. $2.3 billion that was supposedly being held for legal defense costs. WLFI is Trump's crypto token, the one that the government has been trying to seize because they say it's connected to Trump Organization criminal proceeds. And according to these leaks, Trump was planning to use that money to pay off people on the pardon list, essentially buying their silence or cooperation by pardoning them and giving them money. If that's true and multiple sources are confirming these documents are legitimate, then we're not just talking about abuse of the pardon power. We're talking about bribery. using government authority and seized assets to pay people to stay quiet about crimes. That's textbook corruption. That's exactly the kind of thing the founders had in mind when they wrote the impeachment clauses. And the timing connects everything. The Venezuela strikes happened on January 3rd. 2 days later, the Epstein testimony gets read in court, and Trump has his meltdown. That same day, the pardon list leaks. Suddenly, everyone can see the pattern. The illegal war powers, the trafficking connections, the pardon scheme, the financial corruption. It's all one interconnected web of lawlessness. And senators are finally saying this isn't about politics anymore. This isn't about partisan disagreement. This is about a president who is actively using every tool of his office to commit crimes and cover up other crimes. Share this with everyone because John Thune's letter is remarkably direct. It says Article 2, Section 4 mandates removal for high crimes. Trump's pardon Epstein Venezuela trifecta demands immediate execution. Execution meaning execution of the constitutional provision carrying out the removal that the Constitution requires. And the numbers back him up. 78 senators projected to vote for conviction. That's 11 more than the 67 needed. That's a margin that makes this actually viable. In both previous Trump impeachments, Republicans held ranks. Conviction failed because not enough Republicans defected. But this time, 28 Republicans are publicly supporting removal. That's more than enough. And polling shows why they're willing to do this. Trump's approval rating crashed to 29% after the Epstein testimony. 29%. That's lower than Nixon when he resigned. That's historically unprecedented territory for any president. Republicans are looking at those numbers and doing the math for the midterms. If they stick with Trump, if they defend a president at 29% approval who just screamed about pedophile hoaxes in federal court, they will lose everything. The House, the Senate, state legislatures, governorships, everything. Early projections are showing 55 House seat losses for Republicans if Trump stays in office through the midterms. 55. That would be a wipeout, a generational defeat. The kind of loss that destroys a political party for decades. So Republicans are making a calculation. Remove Trump now. Install Vance. Distance themselves from the scandals. And maybe they can salvage something. Maybe they can go into the midterms saying we did the right thing. We put country over party. We removed a corrupt president. It's a Hail Mary, but it's the only play they have left. Meanwhile, Vance is already acting as president. He's taking intelligence briefings, he's meeting with foreign leaders, he's making personnel decisions. And his office is being very careful to frame this as temporary, using 25th Amendment procedures to ensure continuity of government while the Senate prepares for the Article 2 hearing. But here's the thing. Everyone knows what's really happening. This is a soft coup, not a military coup, not an illegal seizure of power, but a constitutional process being used by Trump's own party to remove him before he can do more damage. And Trump from detention is raging about it. His lawyers are filing emergency motions claiming this violates due process. His supporters are claiming this is a deep state conspiracy. But the legal reality is clear. The Senate has the votes. The Constitution provides the mechanism. Chief Justice Roberts will preside over a hearing that, based on current vote counts, will result in Trump's removal from office. The only question is timing. Will it happen before the State of the Union? The speech is scheduled for soon, and there's no way Trump can give that address now. Not with this Senate revolt happening. Not with Vance already performing presidential duties. Not with his approval at 29% and criminal charges piling up. So the speculation is that the Article 2 hearing will happen this week. Emergency session, quick vote, removal, and then Vance becomes president. Not acting president, not interim president. President. Full stop. Now let me explain why this creates such a devastating dynamic for Trump. Being removed from office via Article 2, Section 4 doesn't just end his presidency, it also strips away any remaining legal protections. He loses executive privilege completely. He can't claim immunity for anything that happened during his presidency. Every document, every communication, every action becomes fair game for prosecution. And we're not just talking about the existing charges, the classified documents case, the nuclear secrets. Those are already moving forward. But now prosecutors can bring charges related to the Epstein connections. They can charge him with conspiracy related to the pardon scheme. They can charge him with violations of the War Powers Act for the Venezuela strikes. They can charge him with obstruction of justice for trying to bury evidence. The list goes on. Trump is looking at potentially dozens of criminal charges across multiple jurisdictions. Federal charges, state charges in New York for Trump Organization financial crimes, state charges in Georgia for election interference. He's going to spend the rest of his life in courtrooms and probably in prison. And his family isn't safe either. Don Jr. was on that pardon list for a reason. He's under investigation. Ivanka has been subpoenaed in multiple cases. Eric is facing questions about financial fraud. The entire Trump family enterprise is being dismantled in real time. Markets have already crashed 5% since the pardon leaks came out. 5% in 2 days. That's billions of dollars in value wiped out because investors are terrified of the instability. And if Trump gets removed, which creates a change in presidential administration in the middle of a term, markets are going to freak out even more, at least temporarily. But here's what's interesting. Some analysts think markets will actually recover quickly once Vance is president. The theory is that Trump himself was the source of instability. He was unpredictable. He was creating international incidents. He was threatening to ban Congress and seize assets and do all kinds of crazy stuff that made investors nervous. Vance, even though he's conservative and even though he has Trump connections, is seen as more conventional, more predictable, someone who will follow established rules and norms. And what happens next? Trump's hardcore supporters are not going to accept this quietly. They already think the entire system is rigged against them. They already believe deep state conspiracy theories. And now the Senate, including Republicans, is removing their guy from office. That's going to confirm every conspiracy theory they've ever believed. We're already seeing calls for protests and resistance on right-wing social media platforms. Some of the more extreme voices are talking about armed resistance. This is dangerous territory. We could be looking at civil unrest that makes January 6th look small by comparison, and law enforcement is preparing for that possibility. The FBI has increased threat levels, the National Guard is on standby in multiple states. Security around the Capitol has been massively increased. Everyone remembers what happened when Trump lost the election and claimed it was stolen. Now imagine what happens when he's actually removed from office by constitutional process. But here's the thing. The alternative was worse. If the Senate didn't act, if they just let Trump keep doing what he was doing, where does it end? He already launched military strikes without authorization. He already tried to mass pardon people connected to trafficking. He already threatened to ban Congress. What's next? At some point, you have to enforce constitutional limits, even if it's politically difficult, even if it causes backlash, because the alternative is allowing a president to become a dictator. And the Senate, including those 28 Republicans, decided that's a line they won't cross. The midterm elections become a referendum on what just happened. Democrats are going to run on accountability. They're going to say, we stood up to corruption. We enforced the Constitution. We removed a criminal president. Vote for us to ensure it never happens again. Republicans are going to be split. Some will defend the removal and say we did the right thing. We put country over party. We need to move forward with Vance. Others, especially in deep red districts, are going to attack the removal and say it was illegitimate. That split is going to hurt Republicans badly. A divided party going into midterms is a recipe for disaster. And with Trump at 29% approval, with Epstein connections being front-page news, with pardon schemes and illegal wars being the dominant narrative Republicans are going to lose, the question is just how badly. Current projections say 55 House seats. That would give Democrats a massive majority, potentially the biggest Democratic House majority since the New Deal era. The bottom line is this. 28 Republican senators have publicly stated that Trump must be removed under Article 2, Section 4. That gives the Senate a supermajority of 78 votes, 11 more than needed for conviction. Chief Justice Roberts has scheduled an emergency hearing. J.D. Vance has assumed acting presidential powers under the 25th Amendment. Trump's approval is at 29% and falling. The pardon list leaked. The Epstein testimony got read in court. The Venezuela strikes violated the Constitution. And all of it is converging into this single moment where constitutional mechanisms are being used to remove a sitting president. This is unprecedented. This is historic. This is the moment where American democracy either proves it can hold leaders accountable or it doesn't. And based on the vote counts, based on the statements from senators, based on everything we're seeing, accountability is about to win. Trump is about to become the first president in American history to be successfully removed under Article 2, Section 4. And when that happens, when the Senate votes and Roberts reads the verdict and Vance takes the oath as president, everything changes. The Trump era ends not with an election, not with resignation, but with constitutional removal for high crimes, the way the founders designed it, the way it was always supposed to work when a president crossed the line. And that line apparently was Epstein connections, mass pardons, and illegal wars all in the same week. That was the line that even Republicans wouldn't defend. That was the combination that made 28 senators say enough. We're done. This ends now. This story continues. Stay tuned.